Hi everybody that is listening into this call. My name is Emma and today I am joined with three lovely volunteers from a local university. All three of them are students that have been in and around the Humber region across 4 local authorities. So if any of you are from North Links, North East Links, East Riding and Hull, this could be a good tool for you to listen into to kind of understand the process of applying to university, what it's like to stay local, and if that is something that would work for you. So today I'm joined with Jess, Carolina and Libby. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves in a few minutes. But as I said, I'm Emma. I was a student from Hull and I did stay local for college and sixth form, and then I actually moved outside of the area. So today it will be nice to get to know what it would have been like if I had stayed in the area and maybe the pros and the cons of that. So can I ask if you could all introduce yourself? Let's start with Libby. If you want to tell me your name, your course, what you've enjoyed about staying local, or the feel of the university that you're at.
So my name's Libby. I'm a first year student and I study English literature. I never decided to stay local. It was just the uni I liked the most, so that's why I went. Staying local wasn't a big impact to me, if that makes sense. I didn't have to stay local if I didn't want to. I just decided to.
Perfect. How about you, Jess?
I am a third year computer science student and I am local as well, mainly because, well, I'd never really left the city before, so it was more comfortable to stay there.
Yeah, perfect. So to some students out there that are listening in, they may find that they don't necessarily want to leave, or they don't feel like they're ready to leave the city, and that is completely fine. It's a really understandable process that you're going through of maybe choosing more local universities so you are close to home. How about you, Carolina?
Hi, so my name is Carolina and I'm a medical student, I'm first year medical student, and I decided to stay in Hull just because Hull University was the best option for me. It was the best medical school when I was applying, and staying local was ideal to save money, as well as joining the best university for medicine. So it was ideal for me.
Perfect. So we've mentioned another kind of barrier that students may be facing, which is finance, and we will come on to that as well later down the line, as well as location and being close to family. Obviously, Libby, you said it wasn't really a factor for you. You were just choosing for your course, so that's fab. Why did you want to study English?
It was always the subject I liked the most at school and the subject I did best in. And at the time, I didn't have a career path. I didn't know what to go into. So I thought English was one way you could go into different stuff after the degree. So that was just my main purpose for doing that.
Yeah, perfect. So do you know what you maybe want to do once you finish your degree, or are you still leaving that open?
At the moment, I'm looking into going into teaching.
Amazing. So maybe doing a postgrad kind of qualification for teaching. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you that are thinking about possibly doing teaching when you leave college, you would have to go to university and complete a 3-year degree. This is for secondary and college teaching. A 3-year degree in whatever your chosen subject is, and then you would do a postgrad qualification such as a PGCE, but there are plenty of graduate schemes to kind of get you into teaching outside of just doing the conventional PGCE after completing your degree. Primary education is a little bit different. You would have to do your normal 3-year education degree, so it's a bit different. How about you, Jess? So why did you want to do computer science?
Well, it was my best subject in high school and what I enjoyed the most, so I decided to go with it, and I just want to see how far I would go.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfectly understandable. Did you always know you wanted to do computer science, or did you just think it's the best thing that I have? It's my favourite subject, so that's why I want to pursue.
To be honest, I still don't know what I want to do. Computer science, there's so much you can do with it.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of jobs.
There is so many jobs, and things are developing so quickly. We read recently that, you know, in 10 years' time, the jobs that our current year sevens are going to be doing, some of them haven't even existed yet. Because if you imagine, like 10 years ago, what was an app? Like, it wasn't really a thing. So yeah, amazing. Computer science is definitely the thing to be in if you want to be going with fast moving technologies and advancements, for sure. You picked on a really good point about not necessarily knowing what you want to do, and that's absolutely fabulous, really, for the young students out there listening. A lot of students don't know what to do, and they don't necessarily know if they're ready or not to make that decision, that long-term decision of what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. So I always say pick something that you really enjoy, because you're going to go and spend 3 years, or in Carolina's case, like 6 years, studying this degree. So you might as well do something that you're happy in. How about you, Carolina? What made you want to do medicine?
It's the cliche question medical students can never answer. It's the one that no one knows, and I usually go with, I always knew I wanted to go into medicine. It was just that thought in the back of my head that I know I want to do it, and being really good at sciences, and exactly the same as Jess said, that being good at the subject pushed me into going there. And being the high achiever I try to be, I chose medicine.
Yeah. For those listening out that want to go into medicine is a really tough course to get onto. You pretty much need to have perfect A levels, and that some universities will look back as far as your GCSEs. So it's really important, if you're thinking about medicine or you have any kind of inkling that is something you want to do, to make sure you do your research before you choose your A levels, and make sure you work very, very hard and hopefully achieve really good grades. Okay, so we've kind of discussed, you know, what your course choice was. How about university? So what made you choose the university that you're currently at, Libby?
So with me being in like the local area, our college sort of promoted the university I'm currently at. So I already had an idea of what like the layout was and like the campus. So I just started going on open days. So the ones I went to at first wasn't the uni I'm currently at now. So I had like other universities to compare this one to. So when I came to this one at last, like I like knew straight away that this was the one I wanted to come to as you was walking around it.
Yeah, so you just had that feeling.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will discuss this feeling that they experience on the campus of their choice. I was very similar when I went to university. I just had the feeling when I got there that I was like, yeah, this is mine. This is what I want to do. So yeah, I mean, what was it that made you have that feeling? Can you remember that moment?
I think it was when I did the talk for the course I was gonna do, and the teachers were just enthusiastic about it, so it just made me more motivated to like listen. And when you could see them how interested they were, it made you seem interested. And then I also liked the idea how everything was on the campus, like you didn't have to leave if you didn't want to. So when I also realised that was this uni, it also made like a better impact for my decision.
Yeah,
I thought.
well, obviously you have stayed local, but you're still technically an hour from where your home is. So you've still kind of got that living away from home aspect, even though you are local, which I guess is nice. Yeah. So Jess, how about you? What made you want to choose the university you're at?
Well, say like my college, being in the same city, they pushed it quite heavily actually, but it was mainly just so I could stay in a place I was all familiar with. I mean, the location was also quite good, and accommodation seemed to be better than the other ones I looked at during the open days.
Perfect. So did you see your accommodation in person, or did you just look virtually, like online?
I saw it in person.
sort of in person. So it's worth noting, obviously, yeah, you're a third year, aren't you, Jess? So
Yeah.
You had the whole world pre-COVID at university, which is nice. So you have been able to experience those accommodations. Libby, obviously you're a fresher, so did you experience those? Did you get to see the accommodation in person?
Yeah, I got to see the accommodation in person, and luckily, like, the open days wasn't affected with coronavirus, so I could experience the uni like on open days without any restrictions, really, which was quite nice.
Yeah, perfect. So obviously there will be students now that can't get onto campus and can't see the accommodation or kind of have that magic feeling that we were talking about, Libby.
Yeah.
So, you know, what would you recommend to them?
I would recommend to do the virtual open days and go to as many as there are, basically, just so you can keep familiarizing yourself with like the courses and the modules, just so you have like the more information you have about the uni, the better, I would say, especially if you can't be there in person.
Yeah, you're making more of an informed decision by collecting more information. So I think that's really valuable advice there. How about you, Carolina? What made this university so important to you?
Because this is technically my second year, as I did a foundation year, I was picking mostly about the opportunities the university has given me. Many countries, many universities around the country don't give the same opportunities as this one. There's very limited programs that offer foundation years for medical students, and just the ones that slip a grade or two in the A levels. That's why looking at the opportunities that the university provides is really important, and taking the opportunity that it's a virtual one, that you don't have to travel, for example, to Edinburgh to actually see the campus, because you get to see it online. And so, for example, like, I didn't get to see a lot of the units I wanted to go to just because of the travel restrictions, limitations mostly, and focusing on the A levels instead of actually traveling to, for example, London to see the university. So definitely taking an opportunity and seeing all the universities virtually.
Yeah. So would you say like COVID in some kind of twisted way has probably actually helped?
Yes, definitely. To some extent it has helped. It's a blessing in disguise, some people say, but you should be thinking positively rather than negatively. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, you know, you spend a lot of time as a year 12 student normally at the end of year 12 or the beginning of year 13 attending open days.
Yeah.
And you have to travel, like you said, and quite often it's in your own time on a weekend, or you know, you may be able to go on a normal college day and kind of get away with it, but it's very rare.
exactly.
And if you're going there and back in a day, if it's, so, you know, if it's within like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours of you, but for instance, for those of you that are listening in from the Humber region that are local, going up to somewhere like Edinburgh and back in a day is just not feasible. So it's a lot of money as well and a lot of time. So it's probably done us all a favour that now everything is on virtual and we can look at accommodation and walk around the campus ourselves online, which is good. You just may not get that feeling, like Libby was saying earlier. So staying on the halls kind of topic and accommodation, how did you find living with people you didn't know, so strangers? Obviously, Carolina, you're living at home, so I presume you know all of your family, but the rest of you, how you kind of approached that situation. So we'll go with Jess first this time. Jess, how did you find living on accommodation, in accommodation on campus, and then where you are now?
My first year, I wasn't actually living on campus, but I was living in the halls. I mean, that was a big community one. It was 28 people per block, and you could access each kitchen. Like, it was and there was parties all the time. It was a very social. I mean, I actually thought it was all right. They didn't usually allow past 11. It was a general agreement that you wouldn't be allowed past 11, so people could actually sleep.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem was hygiene. I had an ensuite for every single accommodation, but hygiene in the kitchen was always a bit of a problem.
Yes, I can second that with my university experience as well. When I went to university, I was in a flat of 15, so there was a lot of us, and the kitchen was just horrific.
Yeah.
But then, to be fair, I got everybody in check for the people that I moved into housing with in the second year, so it was okay after that point. So, what did you do for your second year, Jess?
I stayed on campus. It was a lot less people. The accommodation I was with closed down. It was their final year of being open, but it was 7 people per kitchen. I mean, the kitchen was still bad, but at least it wasn't as bad.
That was bad, yeah.
But still, it's why I chose to go into a studio flat for my third year, sorry, with my own kitchen.
With your own kitchen, so you can clean it as you wish. The hygiene will be better. I completely agree with that. I did in my third year. I moved out with just one other person, so if it wasn't me, it was him. So he could easily nail that down. So that's brilliant. I mean, was it a deal breaker for you to have an ensuite? You mentioned about having an ensuite in every single accommodation. Was that a deal breaker for you?
It was. I do not like to share bathrooms, especially with people I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So that may be a common thing that a lot of students that are listening in are fearing, is sharing bathrooms and sharing kitchens. Kitchens is a little bit more manageable. I would say don't anticipate the same kind of hygiene that you've maybe got at home in the kitchen, but at least try and create rules within your flat if possible. But yeah, I would anticipate if you want an ensuite, those accommodations are available for students. A lot of the accommodation at the university that you three are from does have ensuite now. A lot of the new accommodation, so that's on campus. How did you find the difference between being off campus in halls and on campus in halls, Jess? Do you prefer one over the other?
I mean, the one that was off campus, I offered a meal a day. I mean, and they offered a free bus pass because it was in a village close by to the city.
Yeah. Well, that's good because essentially you could have, you've got a transport bus pass. You've also having a meal. Like those things are things to think about when looking for accommodation, whether you want catered or self-catered, or there are those options.
I would have stayed there if it hadn't have closed.
Okay, well that's good to know. Even though the hygiene was worse, you would have stayed there, which is, you can play off the pros and cons.
It was a nice community. Everyone got along, and the meals, and it was all in a big public hall like thing, and there was an on-site bar with a gym. It was pretty good.
Amazing, yeah. And obviously, Libby, you're also in halls as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
But you're on campus. So tell us a little bit about that, how you're finding that.
So I found it surprisingly okay. It was quite easy to make friends with the people I was living with. I'm sharing with 8 people, and we've all got on really well. Listening to other people's stories of on-campus accommodation, you sort of go in a bit apprehensive, but I've come out really good with it, and I've made some really good friends. The kitchen is fine personally. Sometimes there's a bit of mess, but I feel like you've got to expect that when sharing with people. And I also have an ensuite, and that is what I wanted. I didn't want to share a bathroom, but on my accommodation at campus, there's 3 sets of accommodation, and the one I'm in, everybody has an ensuite. So for this whole block, you can't. There's no possibility of sharing a bathroom basically. So it was quite lucky.
Yeah, that's quite good. It's worth kind of explaining maybe the different types of accommodation. So you can have en suites, but you can also get duplexes at most universities, which is where you only share a bathroom with one other person. That was my experience. You can also get ones where there's maybe flats of maybe 4 to 6 people and they share a bathroom, which is more just like being in a house and sharing. Also, it's maybe worth picking up on what Jess said about kind of changing from year to year. When you're at university, you quite often change your accommodation year to year. You don't necessarily stay in the same place for the whole 3 years. So a lot of students move out into local housing in their second year just because it's cheaper and they've kind of got a set of friends and they want their own house. So that's kind of a normal move, or people move into different types of on-campus accommodation that best suits their needs. So Carolina, do you want to just kind of talk about your decision to stay living from home?
So my decision was pretty quick that I wanted to stay at home just because of finances. Since my course is 6 years, I knew that I would have enough time to move out, and taking the luxury of living at home, having my meals cooked for me and everything clean, and not having to have arguments with flatmates, I decided to stay the first year at home. But since COVID kicked in, I was meant to move out this year, but COVID kicked in and I decided it's not worth wasting my money this year when we're locked in anyway. So I've actually signed a contract to move out last year, but it's purely because of finances and saving the money to be able to live off a normal instead of a very restrained life when I move outside of home.
Yeah. So are you maybe looking to move out this September?
Yes, I've already signed a contract and ready to move out.
Oh, amazing. Are you moving into housing or halls?
I'm moving into housing with 2 of my friends. We've got a decent group to move out in with.
Good. Hopefully no arguments.
Exactly, yes.
It would be a good experience. You mentioned about independent living briefly then, about having your meals cooked and washing done and things like that. How have Libby, how have you found those experiences? Because obviously you've moved out, so you've had to do everything. Were you prepared for that? Or
my parents never really prepared me for stuff like that. I was quite lucky where everything was done for me, and then I'd come here and then I had to like get used to like washing machines. The kitchen is quite good, to be fair, because in our kitchen there's people who can cook really good. So if you need help, they just normally do it for you if you keep asking them. So people help each other. What my flat is we never go to the washing machine on our own, for example. We always go with somebody else. So we normally do it in pairs. So makes it easier to learn.
Because obviously in accommodation on campus, it's maybe worth saying that they have laundrettes to go to.
Yeah.
So there's rows and rows of washers and dryers. How have you found that experience? Obviously, have you always managed to find a washer and a dryer empty that you can use?
Yeah, I've always been fine with that. I think it depends what time you go at. If you go early in the morning or late at night, you're normally okay. But if you go at midday, it's normally quite busy. So it's just picking the right time, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I had an experience like that at uni where I used to have to kind of wake up at maybe 7 on a Saturday. I used to bang the washing on and go back to bed for an hour and then get back up and just trying to find the optimum time to go when nobody else is there. Jess, how did you find that? Were you prepared?
Yeah, actually, pretty well. I mean, I came with all sorts of different appliances like soup maker, slow cooker, because I like making meals like that. And in terms of washing machines, yeah, for both places, it was a public room, where you had to go and do it. But when I'm living by myself this year, my accommodation actually came with a personal one in the kitchen.
Oh, fab! So you can just wash whenever you want, anytime.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay for it either, because you have to pay for. I mean, I had to pay for mine, but I think you're in a different one, aren't you, Libby?
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognise your shelving, so it's not one that I stayed in.
Yes. So do you have to pay for your washing, Libby, when you go down?
Yeah, we have to pay for ours.
Does it go on a top-up card? Is that how it works?
There's an app you can put on your phone and you pay it through PayPal, so it's secure. And then you scan the QR code on the washer to the app, and then it does
wow, it's so much more advanced than when I was at uni. And I was only at uni 4 years ago. Yeah, we had a little card that we had to swipe in the washing machine. Yeah.
I think it is quite a new concept because I can remember coming on the open day and they did say you'd get a card, and then I've come and never got a card. So I think that's like maybe a new thing they've done.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a good
Yeah.
way of doing it. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you'll be moving out in September, Carolina, so you'll have all of this fun to come when you move out, learning how to do all of this. Have you been preparing in any way?
Definitely. I mean, I'm a very independent person myself at home anyway. So my mum is treating me like a flatmate rather than her daughter, just to prepare me for it. But I'm definitely prepared.
Yeah. Could all three of you give some advice to maybe students that are listening on how to prepare for like the practicalities of living independently? What advice would you give? Should we start with Jess?
I would say to not make the same mistake I did, learn what can be washed with each other colour-wise. Because I ruined some nice shirts and things, just on accident.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And learn how to cook basic stuff as well as fridge hygiene, because I had one guy on my second year that couldn't get it in his head that you do not put raw chicken on the top shelf, not covered in anything, just an open packet of raw chicken.
Oh,
A few times actually.
Oh no. I mean, obviously some people may be wondering how the fridge system kind of works. I think every accommodation is different. The accommodation I was in, we used to have a shelf per person, which essentially, if you were the top shelf and you bought chicken, like you can't really do much about it apart from keep it wrapped and keep it closed. But it's just about like making sure other people are aware like what you've got in there and making sure it's hygienic for everyone else.
It was a general agreement that you'd keep to your own shelves, but you'd ask permission, like if you've got like meat that's been opened, like in my first year, then that would be kept on the bottom shelf, and you just keep your stuff separate.
Yeah.
But it was more of the people that didn't cook at all that kept the bottom shelves.
Yeah.
The ones that just kind of consisted off of pot noodles and instant meals.
And ordered pizza and just left
Yeah.
in the fridge. Yeah. Yeah, we know the types. What advice would you give to students, Libby?
What, for the fridge?
No, not for the fridge. Sorry, just for kind of independent living.
Oh no, independent. I would probably say learn basic skills before you go, and be quite open-minded, like living with other people. Because before I came to uni, I was quite like an OCD like person. Like everything had to be tidy, and like now I'm fine with mess. It's maybe just accepting that the kitchen's not going to be tidy all the time, and maybe just start preparing for that. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you can take all this on board as well, Carolina, because you're moving out in September, but I'm sure you're definitely working towards all of that anyway. So we'll backtrack just a little bit. We'll go away from accommodation and fridges and things, and we'll move towards finance, because you mentioned it, Carolina, when you said about living from home, and it was more of a financial kind of reasoning why you decided to do that. A lot of students report that finance is one of the biggest barriers when applying to university. They don't know if they're going to have enough to live on. They don't want to take out a huge amount of debt. So let's just have a quick kind of discussion around finance and the barriers. So if you want to start maybe by saying, did you all apply for student finance? Yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So do you want to talk about was the student finance application simple? Did you have any errors with it? Did anything crop up, or was everything quite straightforward? Libby, do you want to start?
Yeah, my experience with student finance was quite easy. It was straightforward. That was really well explained, so you couldn't go wrong. It was just making sure you like fill the details out correctly, like at the beginning, and then you was fine. But my advice would be to like make sure you like your passwords and that you remember, so it's easier just next time you log back in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So student finance is obviously judged based off parental income or household income that you are based at permanently. And obviously some students will get more and some students will get less. So do you think it's enough to live on, Libby?
I would say I can live off mine, but people who have like less amount than me, I don't know how they personally can do it, because I can just get through with the amount I'm on, and I was quite lucky with the money I got. But I know some people who like live off like £30 a week, and that might seem a lot to some people, but I personally couldn't live off £30 a week.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, so the student finance does change, per person. Then you've got minus the cost of the rent, which can be a lot. You do get more for living like on campus or away from home than you do for living at home. So Carolina, how are you finding it? Because obviously you're at home, so it might be a little bit easier, but I could be
It's always the assumption that I've got it easy just because I'm living at home, but I do contribute to food shopping. I do buy, for example, domestic things and household supplies, just because I don't want to be a strain on my mum. And I do have my own bills, and having to keep up a car is costly as well. So you have to bear that in mind, that I do have to go to checkups, and since it's an old car, a lot of things break. So it's easier for me because I don't have to stress about the rent, but I have to pay for phone bills, I have to pay for different subscriptions, and bearing that in mind, I do save a lot of money just because I don't have to pay the rent.
Yeah, I think you touched on that really well with a car. People don't anticipate how much a car actually costs. Not only just the actual purchase of the car, but the cost to run it is absolutely insane. Especially if you get an older car, like you said, which most students will have. So obviously that is something to consider if you're thinking about bringing your car to uni. Just be well aware of that. Do you park on site, or do you park off site when you drive to the university, Carolina?
I park on site, so you have to bear in mind that I do pay for parking, just because if you're within 8 mile radius of the university, you have to pay, because you can buy a permit if you're 8 miles off. But obviously I live really close by, only a 15-minute drive, so I have to pay for parking. With COVID right now, they allowed students to park for free just because there were only med students, and it wasn't feasible for them to maintain just paying it. But it's £2 for a day, and if you add that up, if you're on campus every single day, it adds up. You would think it's a coffee, but if you're spending a whole day in the library, that coffee could save your life. So just balancing out your finances.
Definitely, it's definitely things that you need to consider, maybe creating your own budget sheet or knowing what's going in and out of your account. It definitely makes you more independent in terms of finance, going to uni and having student finance, because it's your own kind of income to support yourself. How about you, Jess? Did you go through student finance, and how did you find it?
Found it pretty all right. My college actually helped with some of us who were struggling with it, but for me it was straightforward. Hand in the proper stuff, and I'd also remember Libby said about passwords. Make sure they're secure, because I had one friend with their account got hacked, and the bank details got changed just before a payment.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't realise.
Yeah, so then they wouldn't have got their payment. Was that all sorted in the end? Did they?
Yeah, like bank sorted it all out and everything.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's probably worth mentioning that student finance, the application goes through from about March onwards, the year prior to going to university. But you can apply for student finance right up to when you're actually starting university. Obviously, the earlier the better, because it's kind of there sat waiting, and you're going to get paid on time, which is always nice. Because student finance can have a tendency to not necessarily pay you on time if you leave it too late. So just be aware of that. So we'll move on from finance, unless, hang on, let's I'll probably edit this out, just bear with me. I need to just get my thoughts in gear. Okay, so let's talk about bursaries. Okay, so you guys have all accessed some kind of bursary or scholarship through university. So let's maybe start with Carolina. What kind of bursaries and scholarships have you accessed?
So there's actually, since foundation year was the first year, there was a brand new bursary in place for people who live in households below 15 grand, and you get a £1,000 bursary. I was able to access that, but that was purely for medicine. And there's more scholarships and bursaries within medical school itself. So it's worth looking through that, because you might not know what you're entitled to without checking, because there's different criteria to meet. But it was a very helpful thing if you just contact student finance, not even student finance within the university, and the finance team will be able to guide you and help you even when the information is confusing and you don't know if you meet the criteria.
Yeah, definitely important to know your support services at university and see what actual support's out there, because there are a lot of members of staff that their job is basically to help your well-being. So just know who you need to best approach for different things, whether that be finance or even things that may seem as trivial as a swipe card and being access to buildings and things like that, and to the computers. How about you, Libby? Did you access any bursaries or scholarships?
I got a scholarship to do with the grades I received, because they were quite okay grades. The university gave you some money as a helping hand. You don't have to repay that money back. So it was just your money. You can do what you want with it, which was quite nice. And for that, I think there was two different types depending on what grade you got. One set amount, or if you got higher grades, you got a bit more money.
Mm-hmm.
Which was quite nice, and I know quite a lot of people who received that.
Yeah, are they paid in instalments?
Yeah, they pay it in 2 instalments. I think one was in December and one was in February.
Perfect. Yeah. How about you, Jess? Did you access any bursaries or scholarships?
I accessed a scholarship similar to it was a grade one. I got quite high grades in college, so I got quite a high scholarship, and it's paid throughout the 3 years.
Okay, perfect. So it's not just your first year.
It's 2 installments per year for 3 years.
Amazing. So has that helped you be able to support, your living and your accommodation?
Massively, yeah.
Yeah. So do you think student finance was enough to live off, Jess?
I mean, I got quite lucky. I've got the full amount, but I know, and I'm pretty good at budgeting, but I know for some, their parents earn too much, but their parents don't help them.
Yeah.
And I know one where the money they receive doesn't even cover their accommodation fees, and they live in a non-ensuite in housing, so one of the cheapest accommodations you can get, and they can't afford anything.
Yeah.
They have to work for near full time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, this is part 2. We just had to take a quick break, so we'll just come back right where we picked off with student finance. So obviously we have mentioned that finance was a barrier to the university. So if we just kind of go around, could all three of you tell me what your biggest barrier was? One of maybe the only reason why you think, you may not have gone to university. Libby, do you want to start?
I don't really know, to be honest. I always had in mind I was going to university. It was just finding a university what I really liked. But I guess one of them would be make sure the course is what you want it to be interested in it, because that will affect your experience. You don't want to be going to a university if you don't like the degree. The modules, I would say, are quite important, personally.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you mentioned you didn't really have any barriers, which is absolutely fantastic. That's what we like to hear. So what was it, did you feel really supported in the process? Obviously, you said you always knew you wanted to go to university. So who helped you realise that along the way?
I would say my college and sixth form, like the two schools I went to were like quite like GCSEs, A levels, and uni. So I never really in my head had other options because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to go into as a career. So I just thought university would be good and do English where I could do anything with it. Just then I take it from there after.
So were you made aware of other opportunities? So were you made aware of like apprenticeships or different work?
We was always like told about apprenticeships, not obviously as much as university, but I never really found an apprenticeship I really liked. And with the area I was in, it was quite a small town where there wasn't many opportunities.
Yeah, you'd have had to have moved away. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Carolina? What was your biggest barrier, do you think?
With it being medicine, not meeting my grades, obviously, and I didn't see myself doing anything else. So you could argue that my biggest barrier was just failing A levels in general and my anxiety of not meeting them. But having done the research and having looked around, there's plenty of opportunities to get into medicine and even other careers, taking a year out and pursuing something else and just taking time to think what you really want to do. Really does help, because stressing that just that one degree is all you need to do is not good for the mental health, and because there are other opportunities. So that was my biggest barrier.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think stressing that this is kind of the be all and end all situation is what a lot of students, especially year 13s, will be feeling right now. I think even more so with the fact that they aren't actually getting to sit exams, so they're not even getting a chance to kind of prove that kind of point. That may work in favour for some people, but it may work in kind of the detriment to others. I think you spoke about like mental health and anxiety, and I think it's really important to stress that if you are struggling with anxiety towards, it can be to do with anything to do with school, really, that are pastoral support. There is pastoral support within your school, and it's their jobs, your head of years, your head of houses, however your system works, wherever you are. It's really important to reach out to those people. They are trained for mental health in adolescents and young people, so it's really important to reach out to them. So Jess, what was your biggest barrier?
I would have to say mixture of grades and confidence. I will have anxiety and all that, but it's also I have quite bad learning difficulties. I have got dyslexia and ADHD, so it was about trying to get the grades while dealing with all of that.
Yeah. Do you get support for that from your university?
Yeah, there's a specific department in the university that helps deal with disabilities, and you can even get money for equipment and things like that from them.
Perfect. So yeah, universities tend to have really good facilities for any kind of learning difficulty or physical disability or even mental disability, and they have really good support networks. If you are interested in any more of that information, we spoke in our Mature Students video about that. So that will be also linked on this page if you are on the Humber Outreach Programme website. If not, there'll be some kind of link somewhere where you can go and see that video. But yes, I think it's really important to stress that, not only do students have to get their grades, they quite often have other things going on in their lives, and it's worth recognising that maybe university isn't their priority at that point in time. It's just kind of not even just like making it through the week, but just trying to make sure they're still intact in one piece. So definitely, reach out for support if you ever need that. I think we'll kind of come on to how COVID has affected your learning. I know that's maybe what a lot of students will be tuning in to kind of hear about. two of you, obviously, Carolina and Jess, you started before the pandemic, and Libby has started during the pandemic. So we've got kind of a good split here. But let's talk about pre-COVID first. How did you find the transition to university? Was it quite smooth pre-COVID? Carolina, should we start with you?
Yeah, for me personally, it was really smooth. The support from my college was great, and living in the area, I knew the campus already. So that kind of side of anxiety was gone, and I absolutely loved attending lectures and being in that environment where you're treated as an adult, because you'd think that everyone treats you like an adult in A level, but you're still a child. But then once you're at university, you're kind of abandoned, I should say, and you're just left to do your own learning, and that kind of freedom was really empowering. Finally feeling like an adult, so it's really good. And then the transition midway through my first year, switching completely to online learning was really fun, just because everyone thought it's just another holiday, but no one knew it would last this long.
Yeah, I think everyone anticipated it to be, oh, you know, it's great, but the novelty soon wore off. So
Yes.
how have you found the transition because of COVID? Obviously, you mentioned a lot of things, everything's online, but I presume medicine's got some in contact time as well.
Yes, we do. Just with the government restrictions, we're only down to 1 day a week contact time, but it's a completely full day of so-called PBL. So in our bubble, and we have conversations more likely, and then some anatomy, and the rest is completely online. We're not allowed to have any contact with patients unless you're in third year and above. But that is easing now, and they're planning on to having us to do some contact with patients in person, but that is still a bit unknown. So it was a huge restriction for my learning.
Yes.
We have to deal with it.
Yeah, I think universities have responded well, I would say, in the sense that, you know, things have, you know, it's not like courses have stopped, like there has been, you know, something has continued. But obviously for different people, that learning experience has significantly altered. So it's nice to kind of get your take on it. Obviously, medicine, you've now got a blended approach, should we say, because you've got a bit online, a bit in person. So it's quite nice. Jess, how would you describe the change for COVID? Because obviously you're a third year, so you're in like one of your most important years, really, in terms of is this your final year, or are you doing an integrated?
It's my final year.
So that must be quite hard to be doing all of your final year online. But tell me a little bit about the process of converting over to online for COVID reasons.
It was a bit messy because of the fact that with computer science, there's a lot of software, hardware that we need, and some of us don't have computers and things like that. I mean, thankfully, well, I do, but just there was a lot of limitations. Coursework had to be changed and all that, and it was a bit of a mess. I mean, during trimester 1 of this year, my third year, I was going in for 2 hours once a week, but then we had to stop that. There was actually in my class someone did get COVID, and we all had to go into isolation. And this term, there's no actual on-site classes whatsoever.
So everything's online?
Yeah, everything is.
So what activities do you have online? Is it lectures, seminars, one-to-ones? What type of stuff do you have?
It's lectures, but some of my lecturers, they all pre-record their lectures. Well, one of them does pre-record and talks about it in, well, the online lectures, but the labs, well, our practical stuff is all online where we can get help. One of them does a 4-hour session per week.
Oh wow, that's quite a long session. Yeah. So in terms, obviously, will you have like a dissertation or a project to do this year?
Yeah, I'm currently in the middle of that.
Yeah,
as well.
I don't envy you. They're always difficult. Do you know? Have you managed to be able to get the support for that? Because you are distant learning. Essentially, it's distant learning. You're home learning online.
Yeah, I have got a good amount of support, as well as I did the module that my dissertation is based on last term, so the information is still there.
Yeah,
as well.
that's good. Yeah, easy for you to access. Okay. And then Libby, obviously you have joined during COVID, which is must be an experience in itself. How did you find the transition? Because obviously you didn't know any different.
Yeah, I think that was it. I didn't know any different. So to me, I personally think I transitioned fine. Like, it was okay because the first few weeks I had a few lessons on campus, and then obviously that stopped. But I think I'm quite lucky in my course, with it being English. I don't have a practical element to it, in the sense that I need to go in for labs or so. I think for my course, it hasn't really affected me that much. But obviously, people who do like medicine or like computer science, they've obviously been like more affected,
Yeah.
which has not been good.
Yeah. We'll kind of touch on to the elephant in the room of whether university is good value for money right now because of COVID. So if you could tell me, like, Libby, you can start.
Yeah.
If university is good value for money pre-COVID or post-COVID. I know you weren't pre-COVID, but obviously when COVID
Yeah. I would say with COVID, like with the experience with COVID, I would say probably reduce the tuition fees just a little bit, just obviously because we aren't having the experience we expected, and the teaching's obviously changed dramatically. So I think it should be reduced a little bit, but then it's not the university's fault that coronavirus is a thing. So I think it's just a hard one, to be fair, but I do think it should be reduced a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think your course is good value for money in general, outside COVID, independent of COVID?
Yeah, I would say I think it is quite a lot of money when you think about it per year. Like, it's £9,250. I think that's just quite a lot of money for a course. Like,
Yeah.
I do think that is a lot of money, but then at the same time you're getting a degree out of it. So, and the experiences you're getting from it, I feel like, I don't know. People have different opinions. I would say it's quite high, but I'm happy to pay it.
Yeah. Okay. And what about like all courses being the same kind of price? Is that fair?
I don't really know, to be honest. I feel like if you're doing like a proper practical course, I feel like you're probably expected to pay a bit more just because you're using more resources. But I think as an English student, I have to buy my own resources, I have to buy my books and stuff. So I don't see why my course is as expensive when I don't get provided with like physical books or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's understandable. I know we mentioned this in the freshers video a few weeks ago, so obviously that will be also linked somewhere on this page. But we did kind of touch on value for money there, regarding if all courses should be the same price, because some they need, for example, Carolina, you're going to need like MRI machines and all these wonderful gadgets, where Libby doesn't have anything other than having to pay for her own books. So it's very, very different in terms of what you're being provided with, and that is something we discussed in a different video. So Jess, how would you say it's good value for money, the university?
I'd say, like, like at the beginning, yes, when during my first year before this all started, but it seems we tend to get a bit less like assistance, like the facilities that we used to use, like the computer rooms, because computer science had their own computer rooms. They're with more powerful PCs for what we do. We don't have access to those anymore, and I think we kind of pay to have access to those, like with the university fees and all that.
Yeah.
I do also agree that for different courses it should be priced differently, like because some should be more than others.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very similar response to what we had with the previous call regarding whether we think it's worth it or not. And the general consensus is that aside from medicine, but we'll come on to you in a second, Carolina, we do find that, you know, people are thinking there's less value in it now because of COVID, and they're not getting access to the things they're paying for. And, you know, things maybe haven't changed as much for you, Libby, in terms of that, you know, you've got lecturers, you've got seminar leaders, and, you know, you've got access to them. Yes, they're online, but that was all you would have had anyway. Where, you know, some people have access to equipment that they need, that's vital, and then don't have access to that. So there's different sides to it. How about you, Carolina? Do you think it's been good value for money, university?
Speaking just on behalf of my course, yes, it has been, just because I am getting a career out of this. I am getting a job, a guaranteed job out at the end of this. And doctors are the ones that pay off the student loan first. Even though we're in the most amount of debt, we are the first ones to pay it off. So I am not worrying about paying it off or that kind of aspect. But with it being online and seeing how other students are struggling, and having been in contact with other students who go to different universities and do different courses, it should really depend on what course you're doing, because being online and not different universities don't provide exactly the same support as the university I am at. And you should really consider and talk to the students that are at the university. They will tell you the whole truth, because some of the universities don't tell you the whole truth. They like to sell themselves. And just being wary and being considerate of the students' opinions, and just looking around and actually doing a research before you go into the course or the university. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just trying to hear out the alumni that have not only that have left, the alumni that have left, but also the students that are currently there, because they know what it's like. They're living it. So hearing their opinions is very valid. I think sometimes you know, you will get students that get on their soapbox a little bit, that maybe just want to complain. And then you'll get some students that just think everything's, you know, sparkly with rainbows and everything's perfect. So, you know, you have to get a good balance of opinion. But I think definitely taking in the opinion of the current students is vital when choosing your university. You did mention about having, you know, support. Some universities not having as much support as others. So, Jess, do you want to tell me about maybe the support services that you've accessed while at university?
Well, as I said before, I've contacted disability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had to get re-diagnosed because they wouldn't accept my previous diagnosis. But I've also contacted, well, careers. Well, they help you with things like CVs, giving career advice if you're not sure about what you want to do, and stuff like that, and also mental health as well.
How easy has it been to access the support services? Is it quite simple?
It's very well, originally it was just walk in and ask for an appointment.
Yeah.
Or phone in, but it's.
How do you access it now? Is it just online?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes. I'm not sure. I haven't actually used them.
Okay, yeah. I think most have transitioned to online, like an online booking service where you can still get a phone call or a video call, which is a great way to kind of still access the support. How about you, Carolina? Have you accessed any support services while you've been at uni?
Yes, I have. With medicine, you have, well, with me, it's 3 places because I'm part of 2 universities. But you can access the medical school support system and the actual university's support system. With it being online, it's really strange because everyone is struggling with COVID right now, and everyone's having issues that they want to discuss. So actually accessing and getting help may take longer than usual. I remember it being really quick last year, but this year it's just you have to wait a bit. But they are there to help. and they genuinely do want to help. And even if you're struggling with things like making your own timetable, I am a perfectionist, and I like to do a very strict timetable, and I don't consider as taking breaks, and that's been a struggle. And the university helped me with that, to actually overcome. And things like being imposter syndrome are very common with medical students, and they do help, and they do discuss that with you, and they are there to help.
Yeah, perfect. I'll pick up on that imposter syndrome because it's definitely something that occurs in medical school 100%. But I think with other courses, it can still happen. An imposter student syndrome, for those of you that are listening in, is when you are sat in a room and you don't feel adequate to kind of be there. You're like, why am I here? Have they made a mistake? It shouldn't be me. It should be somebody else. And it's a very common thing that they talk to you about in medical school at the beginning when you start, because they say, you're likely to experience this. But I would say that happens to a lot of university students in general in their course at some point, especially if you meet students that are on your course that just look like they have their lives together all the time. That can really kind of make you question whether you're right to be there. But you've earned your spot, so you deserve to be there, and you will succeed. I think we'll kind of bring this conversation to a close because we've been recording for a while. But I do have one kind of question I want us to end this on, and that's if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would that be? What if you could tell, I mean, for Libby, it's not that long ago, but if you could tell like your maybe year 11 self something, what would you say? Should we start with Carolina?
Just because you didn't get the grades doesn't mean you're not going to get in. And just relax. Just take your time. Don't get yourself burnt out.
Yeah, perfect advice. What about you, Libby?
I would say work hard, but not too hard where that's all you're constantly doing, like not constantly revising, like 24/7, and do what you want to do. Don't do what other people want you to do. If you want to go to a certain university, you do that, basically. Don't listen to other people.
You do you, as they say. Yeah, definitely. What about you, Jess? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I mean, most of it's already been covered, but basically listen to what my college says, like to make my own decisions and not to get stressed out about it.
Yeah.
Just go with what I think's best instead of what everyone else thinks is best.
Yeah, definitely. I think just making sure you are the master kind of your own choices and your own decisions. Yes, you may have other people that maybe input into those, whether that be parents or teachers or friends, but just at the end of the day, it's your life, it's your decision what you want to do, and you can achieve. You just have to work hard, not too hard like Libby said, but work hard. You will get there. So I just want to thank everybody for listening in to this discussion. It's been really great to hear about the local lives of students that have come from the schools that we work directly with. Thank you for listening.